So you've still got whiteboard. Go ahead as a group. Separate these to renewable and non-renewable, please. Oh, which one did you think of, Tyler? Nuclear. Yep, I didn't put that one on here. We hadn't talked about it too much. Oh, and I put water on there twice. Oh, one of those was supposed to be wind. That's why. Thank you. Yes, exactly, Natalie. Let me change this one to wind. There we go. This is what happens maybe sometimes when you try to work at 6 in the morning. Yep, water and water are considered renewable by many people. Okay, so fossil fuels, how we would group these together, right? Fossil fuels are non-renewable. They take a long time to make, and they're being used up much faster than they can be replaced. So looking at some of these renewable resources here to either supplement or switch over to would definitely be a responsible thing to do. So again, that's just some of the stuff that we're looking at. So when we talked about this at the very beginning of Unit 1, we talked about where the energy that we use actually comes from. So comparing 2013 to 2006, which was this old data that I had found, a lot of it is still coming from coal and natural gas, okay, which are two non-renewable resources. Nuclear power, almost 20% of the net electricity in the United States comes from nuclear power, so it is still being used. And again, the issue with that isn't just, I mean, it's great that it doesn't produce CO2, but nuclear waste is a huge issue to try to deal with because it's something that sticks around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. All right, so hydroelectric power, wind, and other renewable form this little slice of the pie over here. So the reason I showed you guys the old is because it's actually increasing the amount of renewable resources overall. We're increasing how much we're using as a society. So that's pretty cool. So we've talked about electricity, but what about water? First of all, what are the main steps in the water cycle? When water evaporates, what happens to it after that in order for it to get, you know, back to a usable form for us here on the ground? Get my typing tool ready so I can record responses here on the board. So from evaporation, excellent, condensation turns back into liquid form from being a gas floating around in the atmosphere. It condenses into little droplets, and then precipitation, where those drops become large enough to fall as rain, sleet, snow, etc. So how do you think most of the water in the United States is used? We talked about where our electricity comes from, but how do you think most of the water is used? Water is considered by a lot of people to be a renewable resource because of the water cycle, but others say that that clean drinkable water, that might not be renewable because we're using it up at a pretty fast rate and we're having to increase, you know, how quickly we clean it and everything so that it's usable for people again. So where do you think most of the water is used? Or if you're not sure, just start listing some of the different ways people use water. I see Andy's type in. Any other thoughts? There we go, Tyler's typing too. How do you think most water is used? There are all sorts of different ways that water is filtered, and there are desalinization plants in some locations as well where they try to convert that salt water into fresh water, but it's not the cheapest. Oh, so Andy, you put water as both. Yeah, no, that's very true. All right, so I'll get this little conversation started. If you would have asked me before I, researched, good, Bill, you think maybe for drinking. Okay, so human consumption. My guess would have been for irrigation. I would have said that I think most of the water, like the largest chunk of it, goes towards irrigating like all of that farmland. That would have been my guess. Any other thoughts as to how water's used? We definitely use it in our homes for drinking, bathing, cleaning. I know I like to eat off of clean dishes. Electricity, we do use that hydroelectric power, excellent. So here's the little chart. So public supply, which means stuff used by us, that's the purple. Sorry, I should get a little better pointer. So that's the purple right here. This tiny little piece down here, that's for domestic and livestock, rural domestic and livestock. So